Everyone, thanks for joining us. We'll get started in just about 5 minutes with our mental health virtual town hall with Dr. Betsy Kendall. So we'll be starting shortly. Just hang on for us and we will see you in a minute. So again, everyone, thanks for joining us. We will start very shortly on our virtual town hall here, focused on mental health and mental health programs in K-12 schools in Arkansas. So we have our special guest, Dr. Betsy Kendall, and you can see her on your screen right now. We will be starting here in just a few minutes. Just hang on for us. As you're waiting, just hit a like or a love. Let us know you're here. Let us know. So again, everyone, thanks for joining us. We will start very shortly. Starting in just a few minutes. I see y'all pop it on. Let us know you're here. Like I said, comment or like below and get your questions ready because Dr. Kindall is here and ready to answer some of them. So hold on, we're about 2 minutes from starting. Thanks for being here early. Starting in just guess we need like some waiting music, like some elevator music. Dr. Kendall, can you sing?
No. And if I did, everyone would leave.
I don't believe it, but I'll let you off the hook. We're starting here in just about a little less than a minute. So got a little countdown going. So y'all just hang on with us and we will start. Thanks for being here on a Thursday night. All right, it's 7 o'clock and I like to be on time. So all of y'all who are here early and are here right on time, welcome. Thank you for joining us. We're gonna continue to have people jump on. We're gonna go ahead and get started. So thanks for being here. My name is Ruth Wisher. I'm with the Reform Alliance here in Arkansas. And we are just so happy you all have chosen to spend your Thursday evening with us. Just a little bit about us really quick. The Reform Alliance, we're a nonprofit organization. You know what? I need to stop sharing my screen so you can actually see everyone's faces. So maybe that's a little better. There we go. I'm just getting old and forgetting how to use technology, I guess. I'm just gonna go with that. So again, I'm with the Reform Alliance. We're a nonprofit organization dedicated to ensuring all K-12 students receive a world-class education. And really our mission is to create a network of parent and community leaders so that every policy decision and every conversation about education starts and ends with how it impacts our kids. So just real quick, couple housekeeping rules so that everyone can follow along. If you have a comment right here in this thread. If you have a question, put it right here in this thread too. We will get to those as quickly and efficiently as we can in our short time together. And also we're going to be posting a survey throughout this event that we would love for you to fill out after we conclude. And it'll just talk about your engagement and sort of how we can best serve your needs, you and your children's needs throughout Arkansas. So I will get started. Again, we are so excited to have our guest, Dr. Betsy Kendall. And she's the expert, and so I'm really going to let her talk most of this time because she is way smarter than I am. But real quick, Dr. Betsy Kendall has served her years in education, addressing the needs of at-risk youth as a teacher, school counselor, behavioral specialist, school-based mental health coordinator, and alternative learning environments program advisor. Dr. Kindall has developed programs to create opportunities for children. Dr. Kindall served for many years as a school-based health service coordinator for the Arkansas Department of Education. And as I mentioned earlier, she's currently the Arkansas Aware state coordinator. And the Arkansas Aware is a statewide program within the Arkansas Department of Education focused on advancing wellness and resiliency in education. So her main focus in this current role is assisting districts in their development and maintenance of high quality school-based mental health programs. So all of that is just incredible. We are so honored that she chose to be here with us today. But Dr. Kindall, I'd love for you to explain sort of more about your position, kind of tell us in English what all that means. But we've obviously see how much experience and talent you have. So we'd love for you to sort of share more about that.
Well, thank you very much. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me. So you are right. I worked for many years. Everything I've ever done really career-wise is around kids and at-risk youth, starting out in education. My area really of expertise is school-based mental health services. Arkansas Aware is a SAMHSA funded grant, and so it's a $9 million 5-year funding cycle. And really Aware is all about bringing the light to really a topic that really needs to be talked about and addressed, and that's mental health in kids. Yeah. It's a lot of Aware. We have 3 pilot sites. Those pilot sites are Marble Elaine School District, deep in the Delta, I have a great staffer down there. Texarkana, I have a great group of staff in Texarkana. And then the third site is OUR Educational Co-op, and we have 3 districts within the educational co-op. Ozark Mountain School District, Eureka Springs School District, and Valley Springs School District. So we have 3 sites in 5 school districts where we really work to do best practice services there. We have licensed mental health professionals either on contract or staff. We have behavior specialists in each of those districts, and we have coordinators in each of those districts to hopefully bring about best practices. That's our goal at the end of this 5 years, is to ensure that it's a high quality program. The other piece of AWARE is really all about training. And so what you'll find, I get asked a lot, where are the gaps when it comes to mental health in schools as far as a classroom goes? And it used to really be in that classroom setting. Our teachers many times are seeing behaviors and issues that they really don't know how to deal with. Many of them don't even really understand how to identify those kids that need help and then get them on the track to services that they need. And so part of the training that we're doing, we do a lot of training. We do trauma-informed classrooms. We use the national curriculum YTRI, which is an SEL program. But more importantly, the most popular thing that we've done, and really it's been truly effective, is mental health first aid. And mental health first aid is an amazing program for students in crisis. It's kind of like mental health, it's like first aid, but it's for your mind. To really help us take care of each other and to fill what I consider our toolbox, and to fill these educators' toolboxes with the tools that they really need to identify the kids that need help and really how to get them the help that they need. You know, I say this all the time when I do training. So if you're out there and you've heard me talk, you've heard me say this. If somebody's in front of us and they are having, you know, a heart attack, even if you don't know what to do to help them physically, you at least know to call 911. But it's probably more likely in today's time, you may have somebody stand in front of you with a panic attack. And do you know what to say to them? Do you know how to take care of them? Do you know what to do? And so mental health first aid is all about getting those tools out there to folks. And while we do work, our goal is educators, but it's really for anybody that works with kids. The bus driver, the secretary, you know, our secretaries run our schools. So, yeah, so those folks that interact with kids, the ladies that do lunches every day, that have relationships with those kids, it's really about giving all of those folks the tools that they need to help kids. And so that's really what AWARE is all about. It's about training and bringing awareness to mental health, the mental health of children in our state.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting point that you bring up. I mean, it really, so many of us in different roles will come across children or other folks who may be faced with a panic attack or a situation like that. And we were talking about that today, just as a staff, you know, and the people that we're engaging with, you know, and someone said, you know, don't let it be that you think just because, you know, someone's not in a specific role that they can't still impact, or they don't still know someone in a specific role that could then impact. I mean, it's just incredible. And I think we've really seen that. And of course, we'll get into, you know, during this pandemic, I mean, mothers who never, we were talking before this, you know, mothers who never thought they would maybe be teachers, all became teachers.
We're all teachers now.
Right. So we will definitely get into that. I will say that we had a ton of questions come in. And I think questions will continue to come. I'm watching my phone, so y'all send those questions in as we're speaking. But we got a ton of questions ahead of time from teachers, from parents, from school officials who are just finding themselves in a new normal. So let's kick it off. I mean, I think, you know, we might run out of time. We really had a ton of questions coming. We're so appreciative. This is a big issue. It's a big issue. Important. So again, we're so happy you're here to.
Oh, well, thank you. And I just want to add to one thing you just said. You know, in my business, in the mental health business, many times, you know, attention isn't drawn to an issue until there's a tragedy or a dire circumstance, and we find ourselves there now. Right. And while we are all in this together, really having the shared experience, it's really given us the opportunity to take a look at ourselves and how we can help each other navigate through this. And so I'm excited to be here and talk about that.
Yeah, well, thank you. Let's dive in. You know, and you brought up, you know, during this time, obviously we're having to look at things a different way. What would be your advice to parents who are now home with their kids, so may not know how their children act at school or in a learning environment if they're not used to having those children schooling at home? What advice would you give to them to sort of what to look out for, when to know maybe their child's getting too overwhelmed or just needs a break? What are sort of I hate to say warning signs, but what are those signs they should look out for?
Well, I think first and foremost, we have to recognize that, again, we are all in this shared experience, and this is a new normal. Even I'm a parent myself, and I have to remind myself all the time, we've never been here before. This is definitely different. And I think it really also depends on the age of the child. And so you can start with even a young child, but I think there needs to be open and honest conversations that are age appropriate for that child. I also think it's important that we model the positive crisis behavior. That's the best way I can say it. Kids feed off emotion. And so if you're panicked, or you're running really high and this situation brings you anxiety, it's really important that we take care of ourselves and find ourselves in a healthy place first. It's really hard to take care of others if we're not in a healthy place. And so I find myself making sure that in a day, as a parent, my first piece of advice would be take some time out for yourself and offer yourself a little bit of grace, because we're all here, we're having this shared experience, and for many it may be a traumatic experience. And so I think it's super important that we do some things for ourselves to give. That may be 5 minutes alone in the bedroom, or it may be journaling, or it may be whatever, but we got to do that first. Yeah. Then when it comes to the kids, I think, again, age appropriate, honest conversations. And I think many times we have to really, as a parent, an adult, I think we have to bite our tongue and really do a good job listening to what our kids are telling us, listening to how they feel, and letting them lead that conversation and having a positive response to that. I think that sets the stage for the support that they're going to need moving forward. And I think that also does so much for the relationship you have with your kids. We have to set that safe stage, so when there are bigger issues or those behaviors, they feel comfortable coming to us as mom or dad and talking to us. Some things to look out for if you're a parent out there is, kids' behavior is going to change in this situation, more than likely. But if there's a serious change in behavior over the course of several weeks, that's when you really we have to pay attention to our kids' mental health, just like we would their physical health. And so really be in tune with kind of what's going on with them, having those conversations, and really giving them the support and making sure that they feel safe at home.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's great advice. And I'm sure in your time working in several different areas of education and with children, what's the biggest type of mental health issue you see in students? And I would assume it maybe varies, depending on the age. But what are you seeing, I guess, maybe for younger children, and then, obviously for high school and younger adult students?
Well, that answer has changed definitely in the last 10 years. Several years ago, I don't have my finger on the pulse of the top diagnoses, but I will say this. We do have, Arkansas has 35 plus funded school-based health centers across the state. So within those schools, you will find a medical professional and a mental health professional. And I can pull that data. And so used to, our top diagnoses was depression, and that's for youth in the K-12 population. That's changed in the last little bit. Right. When I pulled it recently to prepare for this conversation, actually, because I thought, is it still depression? I really wanted to know, because I had gotten that question. And so now it appears that the top diagnoses in those school-based health centers is actually anxiety and impulse control, which is, kind of expected. So we've kind of had a change there in what we're seeing in our kids. And I can tell you, with talking with educators across the board and across the state, we've seen a change in behavior for those kids coming into preschool and kindergarten. We've seen some exhibiting of more extreme behaviors. And I know that there's probably a lot of cultural factors playing a part in that. But I do know that, we've had many conversations at the state level about and hearing from superintendents of recognizing that there is an issue and what are we going to do about that. because we are seeing some of those changes in behavior. I think kids today are, it's a different time, and we, as educators and adults and parents, we really have to stop assuming that our kids are having the same experience in school that we did, because they're not. We didn't have that kind of technology when we were there. And it's important to recognize that they are connected on every level. And so we have a lot of work to do on recognizing kind of what we can do about that, and how we can reach these new needs that we're seeing across the state, really.
Yeah. Well, and that reminds me of a question I saw come through, and just because of the topic, I'm not going to say where the questions came from or who they came from.
That's okay.
Some people put them on our social media, and that's totally fine. I'm just not going to read that off. But we did get a ton of questions, whether it was through Facebook or through emails or just through engagement with our field staff, and who they're speaking with. But this question did come in, and it sort of plays to what you were saying. It was about bullying. And I think we can all agree how much bullying has even changed from when we were maybe in school to now. And so let me read that question, and you may have something to add to what you just said. It just said, bullying never goes away. It just takes different forms. Nowadays in social media, kids push others to just end it, which is terrifying, but people say it. And I think it's, I hate even saying it out loud, but I think, the parents and educators are listening, need to know, if they don't know, that this is happening. It says, how does one see the signs/symptoms of their own child being the bully? And what are ways for those students to understand that their words have consequences, and that it isn't a game to say things like what I just said?
Yeah, there's no easy answer for that. But one thing I will say to that question is that as parents and educators, we have to talk to these kids about how social media, it removes a level of sensitivity. Kids and adults too. I mean, let's not pretend this is not happening in the adult world, because it is. So I think we as adults have to model that behavior again, and we're not doing a real good job of that. Adults many times say things on social media or post things that they would never say in person. And it really does remove that level of sensitivity. And I try to live by the rule of thumb, and I try to teach my own children that if you would not say that. And another thing too, just as a sidebar, is I try to tell my kids too, whatever you put out there, you need to understand people don't know you, and they are going to draw conclusions about who you are and what you stand for by what you put on social media. And so I think in this time, teaching our kids about how to appropriately use that technology in general is super important. And I think that I'm sure there's research out there, but it does seem like that the technology has really escalated the bullying issue that we see across the board, because it has removed that level of sensitivity, and it just removes that emotion. You can say things, then there's no consequence tied to it, unfortunately.
Right.
And so to recognize those signs, it's many of the same things that I said before: change in behavior. Do those old, and I'm talking about older kids really when I say this, but many times research will tell you in the bullying situation, are those folks always talking about this other person, or they become obsessive about things? That's also kind of a symptom that you'll see when that bully piece emerges. But again, I have to go back to education. I have to believe that if we know better, we do better. And so we have to talk to our kids, we have to talk to our students, and we have to continue to teach them these new tools that we didn't have to get taught about, how to use that technology, and how social media, that we still have to be sensitive, we still have to be kind, we still have to have that compassion. And there are words are powerful, and we have to use them in a positive way. We have to build people up and not tear them down.
Right. Well said.
Mm-hmm.
So in this time of the pandemic, and it's just a word that we keep saying because it is just such a big part of our daily lives now in every way possible, as we do a Zoom call from our homes when we would normally be in person in a nicer setting, but here we are. So obviously now that students and parents find themselves in a brand new environment, having kids learning at home, And for the kids having to learn at home and having to learn from mom and having to Zoom with teachers and not having that interaction with their peers. What ways have you seen that schools are really working to adapt and working to alleviate stress and anxiety that students may be experiencing in related to schooling during this time?
Well, Commissioner Key has spoken to the fact that Arkansas was a little bit more prepared because we do have, we had AMI, we had it there, it was ready. And so I feel like teachers were a little bit more prepared in that sense. What they may not have been prepared for is moving fully into a virtual setting, and it's been rough. I think it's been hard, and I can even see that in my own house. It's hard with my kids, and so one of the things I think is many of the schools across the state kind of really set the bar high as far as we recognize we've never been here before, and showing that compassion and again grace to our parents out there who are having to work and be the teacher and do all those things in that place. And it's been really hard. And I think our schools in Arkansas have really tried very hard to be understanding to that and offer our parents some support. And here in a minute, I'll talk about how we've continued with the additional services. Most of the schools across the state continued with food services to support our families. At the state level, we continue to provide, if necessary, mental health services. DHS pretty much became super flexible on the billing of telebehavioral health services. So really we could have more access to that. I get asked a lot, what barriers do we still see? And I have to say, probably one of the barriers that I still see is we still have families out there who still have no internet connection. And so I think that if we can take care of some of those issues, I think that we'll not just be able to educate them, but they'll have access to behavioral health services, even maybe medical services, and a whole plethora of other things that they've really not had the ability to access because of that one thing. And so I think in short, and I kind of went around there, I think in short that our schools have tried very, very hard to offer our parents that grace that I was talking about, and the support they needed through those additional services in addressing the whole child. Our basic needs, they're super important, and so our parents, our schools are working hard to get that to support those parents in those pieces.
Yeah. When we did have a virtual town hall a couple of weeks ago with Secretary Key, and we have the video still here on our Facebook and on our YouTube page. So if anyone wants to go back and watch that, he was so gracious and so kind with his time. And he did touch on sort of the rural areas and getting internet out to them. And I know there have been several different, cable internet companies in Arkansas who have been really generous with their resources to get that out there to the students there. But it is still hard. I mean, it's, even if you have high-speed internet, if you're out in a really rural area, sometimes it just disconnects. It just does. Even in the city, it does.
Yes, it does.
And of course, with everyone on it, I'm sure that plays into it as well. So
definitely. And, online learning, it's a very different platform. And so, while we can send our kids to school and they're engaged, for longer periods of time, it's really hard to have your children engaged and be the parent that's responsible for that for very long. And so it's been a shift in so many things that we do every day, really.
Yeah. Well, and since we're on the topic of sort of rural areas, I'd like to bring in, when we are in school learning, do you see a difference in how teachers are able to interact with students, I guess comparing, a more populated area to a more rural area? Do you find, and I don't know if there's a statistic out there for this, but do you find any difference in that either way?
As far as mental health services?
As far as, I guess, the relationship that the teachers have with students and, and where students are willing or less willing or more willing to open up to their teachers. Do you see a difference between rural schools and non-rural, or not really?
I work with, in urban areas and really high population schools, and I work with small schools. And the question that you're asking though is a good point, because I believe as an educator, a lifelong educator myself and a counselor, that the key to success in the classroom is about the relationship you have with your students. no matter what. And the class ratio size is the same, no matter if you're in the middle of Little Rock or in the middle of OARC. And if anybody doesn't know where OARC is, it's 9 miles of dirt road, folks. It's a long way in the middle of nowhere. Hi, guys from OARC.
I would love it.
Yeah, so I just have to say, the class size is the same. And I know for myself as a teacher, I felt it my responsibility as part of teaching them. In order to be successful at doing that, I had to build relationships with those kids. Yeah. I had to. And so as far as the relationship goes, not so much. But as far as, services for kids and things like that, definitely. Arkansas we are in a clinician shortage. Mm-hmm. We do not have enough clinicians to meet the needs that we've recognized across our kids. We have 30,000 kids in the state getting mental health services. And most of those services, guys, that happens at school. And so we do not have enough clinicians to provide that. And so we are doing what we can with Arkansas Aware to create what we would call, and Dr. Bruce Perry would call, buffering adults. Kids might need a little support. It doesn't always mean that they need therapy or counseling even. It just takes, you put this as my quote, but it just really takes one buffering adult to save a child or to change their life. In the hallway, laying their eyes on that child and that student, whether it be a kindergartner, a sixth grader, or a senior, laying your eyes on that student and letting them know that they matter and they're important and we care about them. Many times that's all it takes to, number one, build that relationship, but to change their life, really.
Yeah. And you gave a number and I wrote it down, and I have 2 B papers, but I wrote it down. I want to say it was 30 something. And was that how many schools y'all Aware is working with, or is that what was that number?
So school-based health centers in the state of Arkansas, we have 35 plus school-based health centers across the state. So shout out to Arkansas school-based health centers. That's awesome. We have school-based health centers in many, many schools, and they do amazing work. And a school-based health center, if you walk into a school-based health center, many times it looks like you're walking into your doctor's office, except it's on school campus. And so, Magazine School District has a school-based health center, and they have optometry, they have dental, they have a doctor there, and they are contracted for mental health services. And so, school-based health centers is really about addressing the whole child, not just talking about it, but it's the way you do it. It's the way you meet every basic need most basic needs that child has, so they can be healthy and functioning and ready to learn in the classroom.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So do all schools in Arkansas have a counselor on staff that's apart from the school-based health center, or what's sort of the, rules are on that?
Yeah, so the ratio, I think, is 400 or 450 to 1 for school counselors. So school districts do have to have a school counselor. That school counselor, does guidance work, but they also do, and classroom guidance, but they also do some counseling services. As far as mental health services, a professional clinician would provide that service. We have most of our schools across the state of Arkansas contract with third-party mental health providers for that service. We do have some school districts that employ their own clinician, though. Mountain Home School District, Harrison School District, Smackover, Little Rock, many of those, Bouck, Waldron, Sheridan, they all employ their own clinician, just basically to not just provide mental health services, but also to coordinate services. So you can imagine in larger districts, they may have a clinician employed that may see kids, but that person is also kind of running interference. The successful school-based mental health programs out there, those schools that do it and do it well, a lot of them have a clinician on staff that kind of manages that program and ensures that those partnerships with those providers are high quality, because that is what makes it. Those really good partnerships with those mental health agencies to ensure that all kids get access to mental health services while they're at school.
Yeah. Well, and that reminded me of a question we had actually from a parent, and you kind of touched on it. I'll just see if you want to add anything, but they brought up, what avenues a parent can pursue when a child has experienced some kind of mental health issue like anxiety in school, or it's difficult and maybe it's difficult for the parents to seek treatment out of school for their children. You know, maybe they don't have the resources or the funds. I mean, you never know. And so they actually had asked what all the school offers to help those parents, I guess, help their students.
So I would say if you're a parent and you recognize that you really want to get services for your student, or your student is exhibiting behavior, the first thing I would really recommend you to do prior to the pandemic and prior to the situation we're in, or if we're back in person in school, would be to really talk to your school counselor and talk to your school nurse. You know, talk to them about what you're seeing with your child or with that student, and really visit with them. They will really kind of make a determination if a referral needs to be made, and you can do that yourself too. Right now, if you recognize that, you know, my student out there, and if you guys out there hear anything I say tonight, it would be this. If you're in a situation where you feel like your kid needs mental health services, your child needs mental health services, or you're a teacher who feels like, you know, I really feel like this student needs something, DHS has a 1-800 hotline. The number is, and I wrote it down, 1-844-763-0198. And that's 844-763-0198. If you call that hotline, they will hook you up with a local provider in your area to get you services. Right now, you know, it's out there and ready and available for you. They've done a lot of work to really break down those barriers to make sure that everybody has access to care if they need it. Yeah. And so I shared with you, if you want to post that later, that that flyer from DHS that talks about if you know somebody or your own child needs services, there is a really easy way to get it. So
yeah. Well, and what, so say a student is seeing a counselor or a therapist within their school. Well, now obviously they're not in school. So you touched on, you know, teletherapy and things like that, but have you seen that actually being utilized, I guess? Because I know sometimes children are less likely to do it. Okay, that's good. That's positive.
Oh, yeah. And before this, we had many school districts and providers that were doing behavioral health anyway. And so what's happened, this has really just really pushed that to the forefront. So we say this, you know, school districts, we encourage them to continue to work with those providers and set up an arrangement. So the students that did get mental health services, so hopefully they can continue, and they can do that with telebehavioral health. If a family does not have internet service, please reach out to your school district or me, and we can kind of help with that. But if you do not have internet service, you can use the schools. Many of the schools have safe zones that have Wi-Fi available to them. And so, you know, we encourage our school districts and our parents to utilize those safe zones so they can really access those services and they continue. So that's super important. And that is a resource that really cannot go untalked about at this point, not, you know, discussed, because it is at the forefront, and most of the folks getting behavioral health services are getting it via telemed right now.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to see that it's obviously still being offered and still being utilized. I mean, that's so incredibly important.
It is. And there were a few things passed. So even billing for telemed is they've really made it much easier. Even if you never got services before, you never received services before, they can do the intake, diagnoses, all those things can be done either some of them telephonically. So even if you don't have internet access, you can do it over the phone. And then some of them are obviously with telehealth with a internet access and a camera.
Yeah. Well, and I want to say to the folks who are watching, we do here at the Reform Alliance, we put out a weekly update, and we would love to get you on the email list for that, because in there we provide exactly what Dr. Kindall's talking about, those types of resources, those types of you know, things that may be in legislation that's getting passed, or maybe in funding bills that are being passed even on the national level. So if you want to get on that list, we'll place a link in the comment section, but all you need to do is email us at info@thereformalliance.org. We will make sure you're added. We do it every Friday, so let us know tonight so you can make sure to get the update tomorrow. I have a lot of work to do tonight because I'm going to go add in all these great resources Dr. Kindall is sharing with us. So I'm so thankful we did this on a Thursday night. It's good. it's just, there's so much information. And I think what we've seen, and I think you'll agree with me, Dr. Kindall, is that, you know, though this time it's sad, it's terrible, there's so many just horrible things happening across the country, people losing their lives. But I do think that it's showing us, you know, how to get information out there better, how to still communicate with folks even from home. You know, I mean, it's just, isn't it incredible just to see how far everyone's come?
It is so incredible. And it's really given us, I have to do a plug for our podcast. So you guys you can just go to your Apple podcast and plug in Arkansas Aware. And we dropped a podcast every 2 weeks. We've closed out the season, but we'll start again in the fall. But I have to say, in our last kind of closing out podcast, I commented on this and I had a lot of reflection afterward. You know, this has been a historical marker for sure. You know, this is going to be a watershed moment. There is the before and there is the after, you know. But I have to say, we all have a really unique opportunity here to start over. Not everybody gets a chance to do something a little different. And so what I was encouraging to our educators or to the parents out there is a lot of what we do is about relationships and being those buffering adults and showing compassion and kindness to our kids and to our students. It's a game changer. And so we have an opportunity to kind of have a blank slate and come back from that. And I think that's kind of exciting in a way. And I know that sounds kind of crazy in this horrible time, but there's some light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm hoping it's going to be a positive one.
Yeah, there's certainly always a silver lining, and it kind of challenges us all, but it makes us, you know, just get a little better. So there's always positive if you look at it, for sure. So for the students who are learning from home and finishing out this school year, in this time of a pandemic, and really in the midst of anything that may be tough in their lives, what advice would you give to the students who are struggling with these issues at home, who may not feel like they can talk to mom and dad? What would you say to them? Where can they turn? Who can they talk to?
Well, I know I have hundreds of teachers across the state. We have hundreds of teachers across the state that miss their kids. They miss their students. And so again, it goes back to that buffering adult. You know, when we do mental health first aid training, one of the questions at the beginning is, who was your person? You know, growing up, who was your person? And it always surprises me because there is always several folks that never had a person, you know, that really took care of them, changed their life, gave them a new outlook, whatever. So I have to say to those kids out there, but more so even to the adults, be that person. It's not hard. Be that person. And for those kids, find your person, find your adult who can offer that support to you. And it may not be adult, it may be a friend, it may be a peer. And again, offer ourselves a little bit of grace, because we're all in this together. We're all struggling just a tidbit together, and that's going to be okay. And lastly, but definitely not least, we got to take care of ourselves. So for my 9-year-old or even my 12-year-old or for my 17-year-old, you know, I have to model that behavior. I have to model the importance of taking care of myself so they can understand why it's important for them to take care of their self. And so for those kids out there, find your person and never hesitate to reach out for help. Reach out to talk to somebody and find your person.
Yeah. What I'm seeing in the comments, you know, just tons of teachers saying, you know, they miss their children.
They do.
They are their children. They're
their kids.
Yeah, they miss them so much.
Kids. They do.
It's a rough time for everyone. But we are so appreciative for programs like what you mentioned with, you know, with AMI, and I also have to put in a little plug for Arkansas PBS, because I know that they've just been
for sure. Yeah, they did an amazing job. They're continuing to do amazing. I mean, they did an awesome job, and they offered really structure for parents and for educators that in a time where there was not a lot of structure to be found. So they did an awesome job. So I'm with you. Plug away.
Yeah, no, I mean it's true. You know, it's trending on Twitter every single day. # in it together. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, we really are in it together. We have to be. Yeah. One question that came in from a teacher was, I'm just going to read it so I don't mess it up. It says, in larger schools, students aren't always open to their teachers or peers as they would be in smaller, more rural areas. Now, we sort of touched on that same idea earlier. But teachers are wondering sort of how they can balance the work for students that are having to do this now at home, without overwhelming them, but also with still challenging them just like they would if they were in a normal classroom setting. Can you sort of speak to that and I guess how to not overwhelm the child, but still to make sure they're learning what they need to learn?
Yeah, it's really hard. And again, there's no easy answer. I think it's important too that we have to remember we have to differentiate based on the needs of the kids. And now these kids aren't even in front of us really physically. And so I think that the key here is flexibility. I think we have to be flexible with what we expect from each student. And I think, again, reaching out to them, letting them know that you know, all those teachers that said, and I know because I've heard it a lot, teachers are missing their students. Let them know that. Let them know that you miss them. Let them know that you can be their person. But I think the key is flexibility. You know, never before have we needed more flexibility for teaching and learning ever that I know of. And so offer yourself just, again, a little bit of grace and flexibility for our kids to know that they're doing the best they can and you guys are doing the best you can out there, and hang in there. So
yeah, that's great advice. And for the kids, this was a question we had come in just this morning. It says we're seeing students and children becoming more and more stressed at earlier ages and not being able to cope. And so you touched on sort of what we're seeing for young to older students, and it you know, it's definitely a lot of anxiety, and that's understandable for sure. It's not easy being a kid. It's not easy being a kid in 2020. I am so sure of that. Have you heard of this term, mental health days for students? And if so, I mean, what are your thoughts? Is that a good idea? I mean, I had never heard of this. I never thought through it. But when this question came in, I could not wait to ask you what you thought about that.
Yeah, so I think Oregon has it legislated actually for mental health days. And I can't really speak to that, but what I can speak to is just as a human being, we all need a break from time to time. And we can call it mental health days, we can call it summer break, or we can call it a self day. We can call it whatever we want. But I think it goes back to, again, self-care. We have to take care of ourselves. We have to teach our kids how to take care of themselves. And I don't just mean their basic needs, but I mean their emotional health. Give them the skills on how to manage a crisis. And that goes back to problem solving, critical thinking. And we as adults and parents and teachers have to model that behavior. We have to walk them through how to solve a really hard problem, walk them through how to manage a crisis. And I know that everybody out there has been through a crisis with their kid or student sitting right beside them. And so think about that. Think about how what you could have done better, what you did do well, and have those conversations about, I might have done this a little differently if I had known. And I think honesty is the best policy, talking to our kids about what we experience and what we may not do well and what we do well, and about how they can maneuver through those things with those problem solving skills, critical thinking skills, and again, building that relationship with your students as a teacher, but with your kids as a parent, and helping your kids develop positive and healthy relationships with their peers. And I think, again, all of that goes back to, teaching. We do better when we know better. And we have to teach our kids that. We have to model that behavior as well.
Yeah. When I just saw a comment come from Regina, and her advice was to notice, to listen, to use your resources, have good connections with family so they will listen and take you seriously because they know you really care. And that's exactly what you're saying. Isn't that great?
That's good advice, Regina. And I just have to say, because I'm a parent of teenagers, I do a lot of biting my tongue because I'm really trying to listen, and not just listen, but hear them, hear what they're telling me. And trust me, I can do a better job at that. And I need to do a better job at that, but I try really hard to do that. And I think, again, that's the first step.
Yeah. One, you're right that, I think we all have to be flexible. I mean, no matter what, if we're the parent, if we're the student, if we're the educator, or no matter who we are, it's just a different kind of time. And I had someone just tell me the other day, a mom of 3 young children, home with all these 3 babies, didn't expect to ever be doing this. And her little boy is 7, almost 8. And she said at one point he just turned and, he was doing well. He was getting through his work and he just said, "Mama, I need a break." And she was like, okay. He told her, and she listened to him, and she said he just went and kind of ran outside, and then he came back and was just ready to work and was focused. And he's a very hyper kid in general. Yep. And I thought that was so neat that even as such a young age, he knew, I need a break. I need to step away from the situation. I need to go burn off some energy and come back focused. And she
not only did he feel that, but he was able to articulate it, which
right.
is awesome. And that's what we want. We all need a break, but we have to be able to communicate that and communicate it well in order to get to that understanding place. He could have easily had a meltdown, right. And the mom may have not realized even, okay, he needs a break. It's a lot. So I love the fact that not only did he feel that way and was able to recognize that he did, but he was able to articulate it, which is awesome.
Yeah, and she listened, and
she
listened. Like props to mama for listening, because I'm sure it gets frustrating sometimes and you just want them to sit down and do their work. But
exactly.
And on that, question we saw a ton, since we announced that you were going to be here with us today, was just the warning signs. What should parents look for? I mean, for parents who have never maybe struggled with mental health issues themselves, and are now, with their children 24/7, and there may be certain things that they're seeing and not even noticing. What are the warning signs?
So typically a change of behavior over the course of several weeks. And when I say behavior, it could be acting out, but it could also be longer periods of sleep, irritability, a change in the diet, all of those things. And I'm gonna be really transparent here. Those signs have kind of changed because our kids are somewhat isolated right now. But before I would have said a change in their peer group, or something like that. And that still may be the case, but that peer group and that relationship is going to look different anyway, because we're all kind of living in very isolated silos right now. But I think those things, and I think also, once you see those things, recognizing that a conversation really needs to be had with your child, and it doesn't need to be an interrogatory type situation. It really needs to be a positive support, to let our kids know that they're safe and we love them, and we're here for them. And so I think those are some of the warning signs, but I definitely think that a follow-up, most of our kids in this situation, a lot of them, they just want to know that they're safe and that home is a safe place. And it's our job as parents to make sure that we help create that environment. Just like it is at school, our students at school, they want to know that they're safe there. And as teachers and educators, we have to ensure that it's safe for them there. And I think that's something that we can think about moving forward, looking ahead to what the fall school year is going to look like. And for me, the first thing that comes to mind is, are we going to be safe? Are we going to be able to be healthy? And I think those are some things that we need to think about.
Yeah. I know everyone is eagerly waiting to get back to normal life, but you're right. It needs to be done in the safest and best way for everyone involved.
Yeah. I follow, I'm a big fan of the National School-Based Health Alliance, and they put a really great little letter out to their membership, and it said, we're all waiting for the normal, but what we need to do for things to get back to normal, but what we really need to do is reimagine how it can be better. Maybe we don't need to go back to normal, but maybe we need to reimagine what it can look like moving forward in a very positive way. What do we need to do different, and what can we do better to make sure our kids feel safe and are healthy?
Right. Yeah. And we will definitely drop some of these resources you've mentioned. I know we put the number in here that you mentioned earlier, the hotline for local provider for mental health services that you shared with us, and we'll continue to share it on this thread. So all of y'all who are watching, be sure to comment so that you'll be notified when we update something. And real quickly, and as we're getting ready to close up here, you made the point that it is up to the parents and or guardians who these students are living with to make sure that there is a safe environment for these kids. What about the kids who don't have that? And I hate going there, but it's a thing.
Yeah, it's hard.
School used to be their safe place, and now they don't have that safe place to go to. What advice, what resource could we share if we have any of those students who are watching right now?
Yeah, if you're a student and you're living at home and that place is not safe, my advice would be to reach out. Let us help you. There are resources available across the state of Arkansas that can assist you, that can take care of you, to get your needs met, whatever they may be in that case. And so you yourself, reach out, talk to somebody that you trust, your person, and let us help you. That would be my advice. There are people out there that care about you. Hundreds of teachers across the state are missing their students. Reach out to somebody you trust and let them get you what you need. That's the best advice I could give. And it does break my heart, really.
Yeah. It's tough to even talk about, but it's a real thing, unfortunately, for some folks. But we are so appreciative to those teachers and to those parents who have taken on this new role. I am not a parent, I am not a teacher, and I cannot imagine how it has been. I can imagine for those of you who are in the education world and who are parents, like Dr. Kindall, and I know so many who are watching. We just applaud you. We applaud our healthcare workers. Their commercials, every other commercial is about thanking our healthcare workers, and we do. But we want to thank you also, because you're changing lives, and we want to be a resource for you. And I know Dr. Kindall and her folks over there at Arkansas Aware do as well. We will be posting again in this thread and sort of over the holiday weekend, different resources for you. Again, we would love to share our weekly newsletter with you, where we provide all kinds of resources as well. And I will be going back through this video tonight and pulling out these resources that Dr. Kindall has shared with us, to make sure that those are available too. So comment here and let us know you'd like to be added to the email list. Again, that weekly update will go out tomorrow. And we want to be a resource. That's our job here at the Reform Alliance, is to help you. And I think tonight, throughout this conversation, it's so much has been just communication and having someone you can trust. I think one of the most important relationships is between teachers and students, yes, but teachers and parents too. And just bridging that, if there is a gap, bridging that gap. And when we talked to Secretary Key a couple of weeks ago, he touched on that. And it's something that our folks out in the field, have these discussions all the time. And so we want to help with that. We believe that parents are best equipped to know what works for their children. Now more than ever, spending these last several weeks with their children, they're going to know their children better than they ever thought they would. But it's a good thing. It's a blessing in disguise. So we want to help you at the Reform Alliance. Again, our mission is just to ensure that every K through 12 student has the best education possible, right here in Arkansas. And to those of you who didn't maybe choose homeschooling as your education option, you can see now why education options are so important, right? Because if we didn't have homeschooling, we'd all kind of be in a pickle. So it's just incredible. Dr. Kindall, we appreciate you. We appreciate what you do. Arkansas Aware has just blown my mind at just how much you all offer, and just what a great resource y'all are. And with May being Mental Health Awareness Month, we had to get a mental health expert on here to share her knowledge, and you just exceeded all of our expectations. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me, and for all the teachers on here tonight. I hope you have a fabulous summer, and try to do some of that self-care I was mentioning.
Yeah, no, that's very important. And one thing that kept coming back, and I swear I'm gonna let you folks go, I swear. But one thing that kept coming back to me as you were talking about self-care, I think we all need to hear that 100 times a day, and it's probably still not enough, right? Because we just get busy. Yeah. But one thing I was thinking of is when you're in an airplane and they always say, put your mask on before assisting your child or before assisting the person next to you. I think that's like the slogan of mental health, right? Take care of yourself before you take care, because you cannot take care of anyone else unless you're healthy.
Absolutely. And it's really hard for educators to hear that. But, when we did the trauma-informed practices piece, we realized we need to back up, because these adults, these educators, they really can't do a good job with the trauma-informed care piece because they got to be in a good place first. And so I love the fact that you said about the thing with the airplane, because you're exactly right. I mean, that's the perfect picture. We can't take care of others if we're not good, I agree.
Yeah. Well, and I'll just tell you, Dr. Kendall, I mean, I'm reading through these comments and I hope you go read them later, but I mean, everyone's just really thanking you for these great resources, great information. And so thank you again. I'll give you a minute if you want to wrap it up.
Well, thank you. And thank you guys for all the positive comments. I will go read them later. Thank you so much. I think the biggest thing is keep on keeping on. We're all in this together. And my only advice would be to take care of yourselves and hang in there, folks, because we'll get to see our students again. And I'm excited about that. I'm excited to go back with a blank slate and see how we can do better next time. So I'm excited about that. Thank you again for having me.
Yeah, thank you. And again, we are posting a little survey in the comment box that you probably saw it pop up a couple times during this chat. And please go fill it out. It's super short. I even did it. And so it's super simple, just a couple questions. We want to know what your thoughts are, what mental health programs your child's school currently offers, and maybe ways we can improve. We want to hear from you. Again, we want to hear from the parents. Parents are the best voices for their children. And thank you for what you're doing. Thank you, teachers, for what you're doing. Again, our desire is to connect with you and to build parent networks throughout your communities so that you can really be the voice for your children. So follow us on social media. You are right now, you're on Facebook. Surprised if you didn't know. But we are across all platforms on social media. And again, please sign up for our newsletter because I think you'll really find some of that information super helpful. If you liked this event tonight, you will certainly like that as well. And if you didn't get your questions answered, I'm trying to keep up with it all, but technology is just kind of all over the place right now. If you didn't get your question answered, please send it to us over a Facebook message or email us. I'm gonna make Dr. Kindall stick with me and be my best friend forever. And so she will answer those questions.
I sure can. If you have questions, send them and I'll answer.
Perfect. And we'd love to have you back too. So we'll continue the conversation because we definitely have a long road to go. But I'm proud of where we are so far. So I'll echo what Dr. Kindall said to the teachers, to the students, to the parents. Have a great summer. We're not going anywhere. I'm sure Dr. Kindall's not going anywhere, right? We'll be working. So if we can do anything to help you, we are here. So thank you all again for joining us. Dr. Kindall, thank you so much for your time. And we will see you later. Good night.
Thank you guys. Night.
Thank you.